Okay, let's do this next one here, the very first bottom one. So our variable is C. And if you remember when we were talking about order of operations, we said fractions were groups, right? So because fractions are a group, the very first thing that's happening to this variable is the denominator of this fraction. So fractions represent division. So we're dividing by -6 first, and then we are subtracting 8. So when we do our inverse of this, we need to add 8, and then we can multiply by -6. All right. So to solve this problem, the very first thing that we need to do is add 8 to both sides. Eight minus 8 is 0, and we just bring down that fraction with our variable in it. C divided by -6. Keep that symbol the same. And then 8 minus 12, those are different signs, so we subtract. 12 minus 8, we get 4. The 12 is the bigger number, so we're going to keep that negative, not -12, sorry, -4. And now we can do our times -6. So we're going to do times -6, because remember, now we're actually shifting the fraction over here. So what we're really having written now is -6 divided by -6 times the C. And then we're going to we're going to multiply by -6 over here as well. All right. Well, -6 divided by -6 is 1, leaving us with just our C. However, because we multiplied by a negative, we're going to flip that symbol backwards. And then negative times negative, we get a positive. 4 times 6, we get 24. All right. So C is greater than or equal to 24. Go ahead and pick a number that's bigger and a number that is smaller than 24 and check your work. When we're picking numbers, when we have to divide, I like to pick numbers that I know I can divide by that number. So we have to divide by 6. So when we have to check our work, when we are picking our number, we want to make sure we pick a number that we can divide by 6. So we need a number that's smaller than 24 that can be divided by 6. What's a number that's smaller than 24 that can be divided by 6? Pick an easy one. Hey, here's an easy one. How about 6? So a smaller number that can be divided by 6? 6. Really easy. What's a number that's bigger than 24 that can also be divided by 6, but is really easy to add and subtract? Like the number 30. Okay? So make sure you keep that in mind when you're dividing, because in the future you want to be able to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to divide that number. And if you picked like 22, 22 doesn't get divided by 6. So then you're going to have like a weird fraction, and it's just going to be this thing. If you pick a number you can divide by, it's going to make your life so much easier. Okay, so go ahead and try 6 and 30 and check your work. Okay, I know because we're working with negatives, this gets a little confusing. But when we put 6 in, we get -9 is less than or equal to -12. Now let's think about that for a second, because when we think about 9 and 12, we're like, yeah, of course, 9 is less than 12, so of course that's right. But remember, we're talking about negatives. Is -9 smaller than -12? If you owe somebody $9, but you owe somebody else $12, who do you owe more money to? The -9 or the -12? So -12 is actually a smaller number than -9. So -9 is not smaller than -12. So that's 6. That's not true. It's not right. So now let's look at when we picked 30. We say -13 is less than or equal to -12. And when we look at this, we're like, well, yeah, 13 is bigger than 12, so that can't be right. But again, they're negative. So when we say we owe somebody $12 versus we owe somebody $13, who do we owe more money to? That -13 is more negative than the -12. So the -13 is actually smaller than the -12. So that one's actually true. So we picked good numbers. When we draw our number line, we know that we can pick every single number from 24 and up. C can be any number bigger than 24 or equal to 24. So we can draw our number line now. We can put our 0 on. I'm going to put it right here. And then where do we want to put 24? I say let's put it right next to 0. Why not? 24. And then open or closed. This time it's going to be closed because we got that equal on the bottom, right? Equal means it's going to be closed. And then C is going to be bigger than or equal to 24. So are we going to point towards 0 or away from 0? We're going to definitely point away from 0. And remember, it doesn't matter how long your line is. It could be a short line, it could be a long line. As long as you put an arrow at the end and you tell me that it includes your number with the closed dot or it does not with the open dot, we are good. All right. I want you to try the last one by yourself, and then I'll come back and show you the answer. You got this. You can do it. Remember, fractions are a group all by themselves, but the numerator is a group and the denominator is a group. Okay? You can do it. So if you need a little bit of help, here's your first hint. I set up the table for you. Remember, our variable is that D. The very first thing that's happening to our variable is that plus 12. And then we're dividing. Remember, fractions represent division. We're dividing by a positive 4. So we're dividing by 4. Our inverse of that is going to be minus 4. Or sorry, times 4. And then we can subtract our 12 last. Okay? Go ahead and give the actual problem. Give that one a try. All right, let's do this. So we are going to multiply by 4 first because that was the last thing that needed to happen. So when we say times 4, we put it over here. But what that really means is we're taking this bottom 4, the denominator, and we're kind of scooching it over and making this new fraction. And we're just like, we're getting rid of the bottom part of this fraction and making the top part a whole number all by itself. So now we really have 12 plus D times 4 divided by 4. And then over here, we're just taking 1 and then we're multiplying by -1 and we're multiplying by 4. Okay? So now when we solve this, we have 4 divided by 4, which we can reduce and just say that's 1. And when we multiply 12 plus D times 1, we just get 12 plus D, right? Because we have to multiply this whole thing, and then we would have to distribute this. We distribute this in, we would distribute this in, but we would still just get 12 plus D. So really, it's just 12 plus D. So our answer here on this side of the symbol would just be 12 plus D. And we didn't do anything with negatives yet, so we leave our symbol the same. -1 times 4. Negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 4 is 4. And now we can do the opposite of plus 12, which is minus 12. We do that to both sides. 12 minus 12 is 0, so we can just bring down the letter D. And then we have a negative and a negative. And now we're doing our addition step, right? Addition of these are the same sign. So we're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. Remember in the beginning of the year, I would draw this arrow and put a negative down here. So now we have 4 plus 12, which is 16, and it's negative. So we have negative 16, and we bring down that exact same symbol because we didn't divide or multiply by a negative. So our answer is negative 16 is greater than our variable D. So when we check our work, we have to pick a number for D that is smaller than negative 16. Okay, so we need a number that's bigger than negative 16 and a number that is smaller than negative 16. So a number that's bigger than negative 16. What number is closer to 0 that is negative, like that is going to be bigger than negative 16? And remember, we're going to have to divide by 4. So we need to pick a number that's closer to 0 that we can divide by 4. I like to make my life easy and just pick things like, I don't know, -4. -4 makes our life pretty easy. And then when we have to go the other direction and pick a number that is smaller than negative 16, but still is divisible by 4, we could say -20. But if we look at our problem, we have to add 12. Well, let's just go with -20. All right, so let's work through these really quick. So we've got -1 is greater than 12 plus -4 divided by 4. So then we need to -1. We're going to do everything in our numerator first, right? Because that's a group. So we have 12 minus 4. Well, that's 8. And then we have our fraction divided by 4. So we have -1 is less than 2. Is -1 less than 2? I don't think -1 is less than 2. That does not seem right. So there we go. Decided to finally show up. -1 is less than 2. Sorry, -1 is greater than 2. I don't think -1 is bigger than 2. So let's try -20. So we write the same things down. We get -1, and we do 12 plus -20 divided by 4. 12 plus 20, that's -8 divided by 4. And now we get -1 is bigger than -2. Now that one is correct. So now I want you to try and graph this. You can graph this one. Okay, so how did you graph it? I decided to put my 0 in the middle of the graph this time. You can put it wherever you want on your number line. And then as long as your -16 is to the left of your 0, our circle is going to be an open spot, and then our arrow is going to point away from 0. All right, so now it's time for the you try. Go ahead and give these a shot. If you need help, ask the people around you, ask me. And until next time, have a good one.